A few weeks back I got to review the Crux 3 Nano Long Range that I have here from Happymodel. Now I have the Rekon 3, which is the original concept of this kind of drone that uses only one cell, 1800-650, and it was created by Dave C. What I want to do today is to get these two drones face to face, check them out, see what are the similarities and the difference between them, so you can choose in the future which one you like better. As I said on the opening, the Rekon 3 is the original one. Happymodel, let's say that copy the concept. And if we put them together and we look at the construction first, you will see that they are pretty similar. The bodies of the drones are almost identical if you think about it, with the Rekon 3 being covering all the electronics by this plastic body that it has here. The Happymodel, it's completely open and you can see everything inside. And if you put them next to each other or on top of each other, you will see that the Rekon 3 arms are a little bit longer in the front, and the angle is not exactly the same one on the back, being the Rekon 3 closer, like doing 90 degrees between the two arms, while the Happymodel, it's open a little bit more than 90, something around 110 degrees probably. The cameras are the same. They are Cadex Ant cameras, and again, if you put them one next to the other, they are kind of in the same position, both of them. A little bit, maybe the Happymodel sticks a little bit more than the Rekon 3, but it's almost nothing. The propellers that are being used are the same size on both of them. They are not exactly the same model, but they look very, very similar. The arms on the Crux 3 are a little bit thicker than the arms on the Rekon 3. That should give you some idea that the Happymodel should be stronger, should hold crashes a little bit better than the Rekon 3, but honestly none of these drones is made to resist any crash. I think they look very fragile, both of them, and I think crashing them, even soft landing or in soft surfaces, should be quite critical. The way that they are built inside is the same for both, having both front arms is one piece and both back arms is one piece held by one screw each one. It's exactly the same concept on the Crux 3 and on the Rekon 3. The most notable thing when it comes to construction and the body is that the Happymodel drone has space for the GPS. The Rekon 3 doesn't have any space. I guess that if you wanted, you can print a part and attach it to it if you could. But out of the box, this one, the Happymodel, has that space integrated in the whole frame, so you can have your GPS in there. This drone uses only one battery, one 1800-650. Both of them has the same battery holder as part of the body, and these batteries, they don't have any big physical difference between the plus or the minus side of it, which means that the cage for the battery doesn't have either any kind of physical difference between the plus and the minus, and that makes very probable that you can put that battery on the wrong way and either drone has any protection against reverse polarity, which means you have to be very careful when you insert the battery. You have this TPU part on both of them showing you which one is the positive side for the battery, so it should help you. But again, there is no physical restriction to place that battery on the wrong polarity. Let's get into the electronics of these two drones, where I think lies the biggest difference between them. If you look at the Happymodel Crux 3, you have almost everything in one card. The flight controller has VTX, has an Express LRS receiver, has the ESCs and the flight controller regular gyro and those kind of things. Which means everything is in that card besides the GPS, and in this case, this one has also a buzzer. The Rekon 3 on the other hand has all the pieces separately. You have an FC or flight controller together with an ESC, but then you have to add your own receiver, or you can buy it with, in my case I bought it with Crossfire, but the receiver is separate. And the VTX is also separate. So this drone has a Rush VTX here on the back, we can see it, which is the biggest difference between the two of them. You can think that on the Happymodel you have only one card that should make it a little bit lighter, which is true, but at the same time everything being in one card means that if something gets broken, if the VTX starts failing or the receiver starts failing, you have to change the whole card. Rekon 3 has different parts, which is easier for repair if something happens, but also should give a little bit extra weight when it comes to the drone. And in these kind of drones, some grams should make a difference on the flying characteristics. Both drones use the same motors, 1202.5, with a small difference on the kV. The Rekon 3 has 11,600 kV, while the Happymodel has 11,500 kV. So again, the difference is minimal. I don't think that will make any big difference when it comes to how they fly, and we can assume that the motors are the same thing. Have to say it again, when it comes to main differences, I would say that the Happymodel Crux 3, when it comes to electronic, you have to think about the GPS that you have, and you have to think about the buzzer that you have. None of those two things, GPS or buzzer, are included on the Rekon 3. And for me, that's one of the biggest differences. Of course, they use the same batteries. I'm using Sony VT6 batteries, which are supposed to be the best ones for this kind of applications because they have a lot of power. What about flying? Well, everything that I've been saying translates to the Happymodel weighing 68 grams, while the Rekon 3 weighs 64 grams. There is 4 grams difference with the Rekon being a little bit lighter. So how does this translate into the flying characteristic and time flights of these drones? Well, I have to say that if you blind me and you put me to fly one of these drones without me knowing which one is which, I will have no idea which one I'm flying, because they fly very, very, very similar. They're both weak against wind. They don't have enough power to fly when there is a strong wind. They are both made to cruise around, fly softly, and no push, no flips, no rolls, no nothing of those kind of things. And in general, they are more like an explorer drone that is a little bit quiet than any kind of freestyle or any kind of very intensive, powerful drone. But when you are talking about these drones being nano long range, which means that you're thinking about flying a little bit away with them, and when I was flying them, every time that I was with the Rekon and I got a little bit far, let's say 300, 500 meters, I was quite scared that if something happened, if I don't know, I lost power or I lost connection or something, I would never find that drone again, just because the fact that it doesn't have a GPS or a buzzer. On the other hand, the Happymodel Crux 3 has both things, and I was a little bit more safe flying it, because I know that if I have to land far away, I still have the GPS coordinate that is going to drive me to find the drone. When I review the Happymodel, I actually got as a fail-safe. And that was kind of weird, because this drone has Express LRS, and that's supposed to give you a lot of security when flying. But I wasn't more than 300, 350 meters away, and I got a problem. I got it disconnected with the RX, but again, the GPS and GPS rescue brought that drone back until I had control. So you could say, in one side, you have the question in your head, why did actually the receiver fail, being Express LRS and not being that far away? I'm not sure if it's something that is bad quality or I was in a very bad condition, which I don't really think so. But the fact that I had the GPS made the drone come back, and I still have it and I can still keep flying this drone. When I was flying the Rekon 3 out, I had never had any problem with crossfire. I flew around, let's say, in a 400-500 radius, and everything worked fine all the time with the radio control signal. But again, if something would have happened, I wouldn't have that GPS rescue to save this drone and bring it back home. Checking the internals of the Rekon 3, you could see that there is actually no space for a GPS. So even if you can print a part to hold the GPS physically in the frame, you don't have a place to connect it in the flight controller, even if you want it. Which means that this drone, the weakest part that I've been talking about all the time, if you listen to what I'm saying, is the GPS, the lack of GPS. And even if you wanted, you wouldn't be able to put one. You will have to change the whole flight controller in order to do that, and then you're turning this into a completely different drone. When it comes to flying times, both of them flew around the 10 minutes mark, with the difference that the Rekon 3, when I got very close to 3 volts, the drone kind of just stopped and I had to land in an emergency. I've read or I've seen some other reviews where they say that since the VTX is a different unit than the flight controller, when you are getting closer to that 3 volts range, you lose VTX first than anything else. And then you can still fly the drone, but you don't see anything. That didn't happen in my case. I just didn't have any power to keep the drone flying. The VTX, I had still video signal, but I had to land it just because the drone couldn't lift anymore. And this is around 3 volts, when we have said that in Li-ion batteries, even if it's not the best, you can go down to something 2.5 volts. I couldn't get anywhere close to 2.5 with the Rekon 3. With the Crux 3, I could go under the 3 volts mark, but again, it was very similar. I didn't have any power to keep floating, to keep flying the drone, and I had to go down around the 3 volts mark. Both of them, again, around 10-11 minutes. So there is no big difference when it comes to flying time for these two drones. My closing thoughts for this face-to-face comparison that I'm doing between these two drones is that they are extremely similar. Honestly, I think Happymodel just copied the Rekon 3 and tried to improve a little bit by using an all-in-one card and adding the GPS, which I think they did right. If you listen to the whole video, you will see that the main complaint that I have for the Rekon 3 is that it doesn't have a GPS. And just the fact that the Crux 3 has that GPS makes me fly this one with much more confidence. But if you are just thinking about how do they fly, the flying characteristics, the time and so on, they are almost identical. They are still pretty interesting drones to test because it's something that technology has achieved to do using one of these batteries. Before, you couldn't even dream about flying one of these drones only with one of these batteries, and even less thinking about doing more than 8 minutes. So if you are into nice flying, going around with something that is not huge, that you can have kind of in any bag, and you just want to fly and explore and check around the areas, these little drones are pretty cool. You can just go around, you can cruise, you can take it easy. As long as you are not in a place where it's a lot of wind, you're going to be able to enjoy your 10, 11 minutes flight time very easily. I hope you enjoyed this video, hope to see you soon, and thank you for watching.